Welcome back. We continue our conversation with well-known actor Florence Masebe, who has been telling me fantastic stories about her career, but she's not so happy with the sector itself. She says, over time it seems to be in decline in terms of how the actors and other members of crew and so people who work on these productions are treated by production companies and broadcasters as well, as she said. But then the Department of Arts and Culture looks after the interests of the creative sector in South Africa, and the spokesperson is Asanda Mgaqa, who has joined us on the show, former colleague as well, may I say. So don't raise media issues, that the media sector has got its own problems.
Yes.
And she's been very polite by not referring to that, because after all, artists must be looked after, all right? Now, what is the main pain point for you, Florence? Just to recap before I get Asanda to respond.
I think the main pain point is that we are in one of the most unregulated industries. The legislative environment has not set rules in place to say, this is the bar, you cannot go below. Right now, we're on the floor. There is no bar. Everybody is doing as they please. Partly because at DTI level, we don't have the legislation that is needed for us as an industry to operate. Partly because at DOC level, we do not have the right oversight to see that the broadcasters are not becoming guilty through their contracting processes of feeding actors to the wolves. And then at DAC level, these people must still give us a white paper on arts and culture. We don't have one.
Asanda, there are the issues. As much as we love them, we respect them, we adore them, the actors are not treated fairly and with the respect and dignity they deserve. The department, what are you doing?
Tim, thank you very much for the invitation to the Ministry of Arts and Culture and allowing me to represent the Minister of Arts and Culture, Natim Tetwa, who's away in New York, as I earlier told you. Exactly as you put it, he loves artists. He relates very well to the issues and challenges that they face. His concerns, their concerns are his concerns. And I think that even Sis Flo here can attest to the open door policy that they get to enjoy when anything, they are grieved over any matter. However, how he relates to a particular matter will be determined by, let's talk about the environment on a TV set or a film set. That environment at a public broadcaster essentially falls under the domain of a different department. In this case, the public broadcaster falls under the curatorship of the Department of Communications. So even when we talk about the plight of artists and the unregulated nature of the industry, that would pertain to copyright laws and laws like the Performers Protection Act, which falls under a different department, which is the DTI. However, I'm not making these examples to try to shy away from taking responsibility, because what Minister Mtetwa actually is doing is being mindful of the overarching responsibility, consults quite extensively with his counterparts in the different portfolios. So let's come back to what Usis Flo is raising and acknowledge from the onset that there are very deep problems. The example of, there's a recent production that was halted in KZN.
Uselwa, if I can jump in there.
Yes, yes.
I'm glad she mentioned.
Yeah, what happened actually?
So a production gets commissioned by the public broadcaster.
Yeah.
Actors and crew, not just actors. I'm one to always remind people, not just the actors make the magic on television. It is the entire team. Technical crew matters. So this great company of professionals gets on the plane and some on the bus, excitedly goes to Eshowe in KZN to film what looks like a really beautiful story.
A very important production.
Yes.
A very important production.
Yeah.
And they get there and they start working, and a few things don't make sense in the beginning. It's like, we don't think there's insurance on the set. we don't really have a professional medic. We're worried if somebody gets hurt, something. So safety standards are the first to go when people are budget pinching.
Yeah.
And they complain about the few things, and then they say, but, our per diems did not come this week. And it's not just the per diem. Some of us did not get paid. People only got paid half what they're expecting. It got worse and worse until nobody was paid and nothing.
And
was
of course,
happening.
because it's contract work as well, you know, most people will be going into the productions without any reserves anyway. They depend
you
on the
have
payments.
not worked, if you're a freelancer, you have not worked for 4 months, so you've gone into your savings, because people think artists are these irresponsible people that do not save. So you've gone into your reserves to last you until your next job. And unfortunately, your dry patch has gone 4, 6, 7 months.
But now,
finally you have a job. And this job that you get takes you away from home and doesn't pay you.
here's the point, though. And you know, I'm thinking, is it not possible to have a standard basic contract that's put together for people who do this kind of work?
Next week, Tim, on Thursday, so you'll correct me if the date is incorrect, but this is precisely what the Portfolio Committee of the DTI is going to be considering, the amendments to the Performers Protection Act, because these are the issues that Minister Mthethwa would be aware of. The working conditions on the set. We said that in as much as the laws and the legislation do not fall under the Department of Arts and Culture, the artists and the performers are his stakeholders. So the Department of Arts and Culture would be very much part and parcel of the presentations that are being made at this Portfolio Committee. So there's 2 amendments currently. The Copyright Amendment Act, you know, that one in the past 2 weeks, Arts and Culture went to make presentations at the DTI's Portfolio Committee. Next week, it's the Performers Protection Act, Amendment Act, that is going to be under consideration. And the Department of Arts and Culture goes in there to exactly represent the interests of the artists and to make the case on behalf of artists to say, these are the issues that they're facing.
And will that include royalties, for instance?
Royalties, because
it's an issue that's never been sorted out, right, over a period of time, where the artist's work gets broadcast elsewhere and money gets
Flo
paid,
made a
but it never
very
flows
important point, and I saw you were skeptical, but I just want to endorse it. When she says that the conditions have worsened, what we don't realize is that when the laws were conceptualized, we're talking about 1967, and we can agree what year television came to South Africa. So these are very old laws. These are very old laws that don't take into account the advanced technologies. So there was an initial public broadcaster.
You see, okay, because, and time is my issue currently, and I want us to get somewhere before we part. What are the pain points? We've mentioned the working conditions.
Yes.
It's the problem of the royalties not being paid on time.
Not being paid on time only. There are broadcasters who simply say, we will not pay you royalties, take it or leave it. There is no law in the country forcing multi-choice, as we speak now, I'll name them, to pay anybody royalties. That is why in 2013, Tony Kgoroge walked away from The Wild, which was a production of Mnet. And he said, I will not sign a contract that does not guarantee me my repeat fees. They said there's no law forcing us. Leave.
And this is why the Performers Protection Act and the submission that the Arts and Culture
in other words, now
Department
some of the role players want the law. It's got nothing to do with fairness or otherwise. Because if you're going to earn money out of something, it's reasonable to pay whoever helped you earn that money.
The broadcasters do not think that that is reasonable. That is why SABC shipped off an entire archive of actors' works to multi-choice for SABC Encore and did not pay anybody a cent.
But this is why, because the Act itself says that it's the commissioner that owns the work. So the artist has been commissioned to do the work and she performs. So as the commissioner I own, I then sell it to someone else.
Even with that, SABC has a clause that forces them to pay a certain percentage of repeating
let me interrupt
the work,
you, ladies, for a second. Asanda, very briefly, what's going to happen next?
The submission that is going before the Portfolio Committee next week, which Arts and Culture is very much a part of and actually advancing, is to say that let's look including into these standards that say that it's the commissioner that owns the work. the ownership should be split between the commissioner
Right.
and the performer
And
the
then-
person who acts
And Florence, for you, what is the main thing that will make you feel, oh, arts and culture is doing something for me? At least the
I would like to hear that
Intervene.
arts and culture is 100% behind the copyright bill and 100% behind the performance protection bill.
Which they are on
and
both accounts.
I would like to know that we will ultimately wrap up the white paper process so that things can be standardized in this industry.
Well, let's treat our celebrities, actors fairly. That's
Yes.
all we are asking for. It's their dues, isn't it?
The white
They-
paper is in the final draft form. I need to state that.
Oh, okay. Well, but, you know, for some of us, we will see it when it happens.
So, kiss
Which is-
ball.
But I hope that this makes a difference in due time, this conversation, right? That we hear artists saying the conditions are improving. I was shocked. I was dismayed. I was taken aback that 15 years down the line, 20 years down the line, things are reversing,
It
are in
gets worse,
decline.
but
Let's end it right here. Unfortunately, I have to.
We need an hour, team.
We need a day.
Well, we'll revisit the subject. But thanks again, Flo and Asanda, for having been my
you
guest.
very much.
And that's all we had for you this evening. And thank you for being part of the show.